Hi, it's Mrs. Holcomb from the PLD School Library, and today I want to show you how to make elephant toothpaste. But not just any elephant toothpaste. Today we're going to make a patriotic version of red, white, and blue for 4th of July, kind of like this toothpaste here. It would squeeze out red, white, and blue. And so that's what we want our elephant toothpaste to do. So what is elephant toothpaste? Well, it's not really toothpaste. It's a chemical reaction between yeast and hydrogen peroxide, which usually at home you probably see hydrogen peroxide like this. This is 3% hydrogen peroxide, and you can use this for this experiment. This is actually probably a safer version to do, but this is 3%, which means that it's 10 volume. So what that means is that whenever if you've had a cut and you put hydrogen peroxide on there, you'll see it bubbles up, it's releasing oxygen. So when hydrogen peroxide decomposes, it becomes, or when it breaks down, it becomes water and oxygen. And that's because, think about water, it's H2O, right? Well, hydrogen peroxide is H2O2. It has some extra oxygen there, so it releases oxygen. So we call it 10 volume because that means it releases 10 times the amount of oxygen per volume. So I'm using today, though, 40 volume, which if we do 4 times 3, so if I said this was 10 volume and this is 40 volume, this is 4 times that amount, and I said this was 3%, that means this is 12%. 4 times 3 is 12, so this is 12% hydrogen peroxide I'm using. And this is from the beauty supply store. So it's used to like color hair and stuff like that. So that's where I got this one from that I'm gonna be using, and that's just gonna give me a bigger reaction. So depending on what volume you're using, that's what's going to dictate kind of what size bottle you need. So if you're using just this regular stuff you normally would have at home, you're going to use a smaller water bottle, like just a regular size water bottle that you might have, like I think they're about 16 ounces or so. This is a 1 liter bottle because I am using a stronger volume. So I could use a 1 liter bottle or a 2 liter bottle. So what I want to start with first is I'm going to put some of the hydrogen peroxide down in here. Now because I am using a stronger volume, I'm going to use this funnel because I want to make sure it's not touching my skin or anything, because I don't want to burn myself with it because it could hurt my skin. This is more of an irritant than the usual one we would use on a cut. So I'm going to use my measuring cup and I'm going to pour in half a cup of my hydrogen peroxide. And pour that in. There we go. And now, I said about hydrogen peroxide releases oxygen when it's breaking down. Well, I want to trap that oxygen and make bubbles. So I'm going to add some soap. So I'm going to use just some dish soap in here. I'm going to squirt right down in there. And then kind of maybe swirl that around a little bit. So it's mixed in there, but I'm not swirling it all up that I'm getting a bunch of bubbles right now. I'm just making sure they're kind of mixed together a little bit. So there's my hydrogen peroxide and my soap. And now what I'm going to use as my catalyst, or what I'm going to use to make the experiment happen, to make there be a reaction, I'm going to use the yeast. So yeast is something that we use when we're making bread or sticky buns or any kind of thing like that that we want to rise. Yeast is a living organism. So what happens is when I add it to some water, that it's going to start to activate. And that's why it says active yeast on here. So it's going to start to activate. I want to make sure though I have a little thermometer in here because I don't want the water to be too high. It has to be very warm water, but not hot water because I don't want to kill the living organisms in here. So right now I'm at about 112, which is good. I want to be between like 110 and 115. So you don't have to be exact with that. I just like to mix them together to make sure I'm at the right temperature just for the best reaction. So I'm going to pour my yeast into this cup here with my water. So I have 1 packet of yeast, about 3 tablespoons of water. I'm going to stir it together and let that start to activate. So those living organisms now are becoming activated by the warm water. And I'm going to let that sit there for just a few minutes because I told you I wanted to make a patriotic elephant toothpaste. So that means I'm going to need to use some food coloring. So I'm going to use some red and some blue, and I'm going to make stripes along my bottle. Now I want to try to make my stripes just kind of even around the bottle, but I want to hopefully get my yeast in there before those stripes make it all the way down to the bottom. Because otherwise, what color am I going to get if my red and my blue mix? Purple. So I want to try to keep them from mixing and just keep them along the sides of the bottle, not down at the bottom. Okay, so I'm going to give another little minute or so for this to come together and start to activate. And I'll start putting my stripes in. Okay. So I'll start with some blue stripes. I'm just holding it right against the side of, oh, of course it dripped right down in. I didn't tilt my bottle enough. Oh, we might end up with some purple. That's fine. Yeah, because it's already swirling down in there. Don't really care for the size and shape of that food coloring container. It makes it hard. I'm going to get these stripes in here as best I can, and we'll see what happens. I think we're probably going to end up with some purple, but that's fine too. So now I'm going to put this funnel on top, and we're going to see what happens. Ready? Here we go. So I could see it coming up out of there that it was definitely the red, white, and blue. Now it's definitely kind of mixed. You might also be able to see that there's some steam coming off of this. So what's happening is an exothermic reaction. Okay, so this oh, now we're getting some red and blue there. Do you see that swirling out? So I want to make sure I'm not touching the foam because like I said, it's hot. That's why we're getting the steam coming off of there. And that's why I have this container here to catch it. Oh, now we're getting a nice swirl there. So an exothermic reaction means that it's generating heat. And it's generating heat because that oxygen has gotten trapped by the soap and is making these bubbles. But the reaction's happening so fast. That's why I talked about a catalyst. It's making it happen. It's happening so fast. It's creating this energy, this heat that's coming off of it. And so now what's happening is that extra oxygen molecule really kind of separated off there and made all of these bubbles mixing with the soap. Make sure. And then down at the bottom, you're not going to be able to see it right now because we've got so much foam here. Down at the bottom, it is actually going to then have water at the bottom of the bottle. That's what's going to be left. So it's actually separated out now to the water, H2O, and oxygen, O2. So now instead of that having that H2O2, we have H2O and O2. And that is Elephant Toothpaste with a patriotic spin. If you want to see some other patriotic experiments you can be doing, I'm going to link in the description of this video, I will link to a video I made last year for the Mercer County Library System in which I did all sorts of experiments for 4th of July. So have a great 4th of July.